Well, hello, Patrick Johnson. Here we are. We are going here. I'll welcome everyone in to Canucks this week. Roller coaster ride continues. Honestly, this team continues to confound me. Can we get some consistency? We're recording this at the
Roller
end of the
coaster
week.
opening from you, Paul. Jeez.
Well, it's just it's so hard to know where to begin with this team, and I see
Yeah.
it reflected in our coverage and when our readers respond to whether it's polls or comments. You can have a game like Montreal where you blow a two-goal lead and you look like,
Right.
um, man, this team just isn't very good. And then you beat Edmonton, and yeah, you can quibble with the way Edmonton are playing right now. Um, don't look very good against the Rangers, suffering through injuries, and then get three goals from probably their best player this season and winning a shootout on the road. So I just don't even, I think I know where this team belongs, but it's
Yeah.
squarely in the mushy middle. But we don't have a mushy consistency. We have spikes of hope and flashes of despair. So you tell me, what are the 2025-2026 Vancouver Canucks?
6-16. -3 in goal differential. Just they are in the mushy middle, despite having half their team out last night.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's the remarkable thing in this. And people are going. I mean, there's so many sort of bits and pieces that have stumbled out of discussing the state of the health state of this team. I had a guy say to me, "I can't believe they're over the cap. A team like this," and I'm like, "Well, you understand they have five guys out, right? Like at some point you run out of money."
Yeah.
That at that point it was five, and now it's eight because I guess Brock Besser skated today, so I guess he's back. Um, Bless his jewels. Um, yeah, it's a team that's managing to do enough somehow. Like, I said off the top, this is a fourth place team. Well, right now they're sitting fifth because the very surprising Kraken are ahead of the very disappointing Oilers. And the Canucks are right behind them. Uh, it's a team that I would say has done enough things and is seeing enough bits that should they get a little more healthy again, which you assume they will, even with the crazy schedule, they'll be able to punch sort of where they need to go. Now we're coming, 3 weeks or was it 3 or 4 weeks until American Thanksgiving. It's the discussion point we have every year. 3 out of 4 teams in a playoff position at that point in the season at the end of November will still be in a playoff position come the end of the year. So you can either say 1/4 of the teams are out or 3/4 of the teams are going to make it. But the Canucks certainly need to do more than they're doing. That much we know. Being a 500 team is not going to get you in the playoffs. You need like 95 points, and being a 500 team gets you 82 points. So what's the difference? 13 points. What's that? 6.5 wins, Paul. So there's your math.
Yeah.
That's your math for Friday. That's who they are. They're a team that needs to find 6.5 more wins over the course of the season.
There's no doubt that the injuries hurt, and in particular Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
We'll get to him a little more later on. Good piece you wrote yesterday about his numbers, but we'll talk about that later. Right now, I wanted to look at who is out.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that this roster flirts with the AHL NHL line to begin with,
Yeah.
right? So depth is a massive issue when you're losing those players. I mean, and I think in particular guys who have been sort of heart and soul, like Garland. Hughes is the big one.
Right.
But a guy like Hoglander, well, I mean, okay. Still got DeBrusque, and Besser wasn't there last night, but Besser's been there. Still got Pettersson, their highest paid player. Got both their goalies who have both had their moments this year. But when you do look at the numbers, the Vancouver Canucks are, I believe it's 22nd in the NHL in goals for. And I think there's only one team that's played more games than them. Goals against, they are, I believe, 12th, so not bad. Power play is 22nd. Penalty kill, they're 24th. So what do you take from that? Like, I look at, clearly they're not scoring enough goals, and we know they've got good goalies. They've got Adam Foote. They try to be defensively responsible, but they're not scoring enough goals. And they do have Evander Kane. They do have Jake DeBrusk. They do have, Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser. The goal scorers are there. Is this purely the depth issue and how they're being meant to play, or should it raise alarm bells that they are where they are in terms of goals scored?
Well, just doing the math here on what the Canucks actually need to do to get in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, yes, they need more from Jake DeBrusk, like, which is that realistic? I mean, he had a pretty good year last year. He had tied a career high in goals, and yet he's realistically a complimentary scorer, right? Brock Besser is having a pretty good year. Can he give you more? I mean, you need more. I mean, Vander Kane still doesn't actually have a goal, despite he had. I thought he actually had a pretty good game last night. I thought that was one of the best games we've seen from him this year. I'm still concerned, honestly, about his shot, but he did score a nice goal that wasn't allowed. But it's still, there's 12 games for Vander Kane, no goals, right? Like, there are enough things that they need to be fixed, and like they're not getting, I guess is the best way to put it. So, like, it comes back to what I was saying. Like, they're sort of doing enough to stay in the mix, but they're not doing enough to actually get in the playoffs. And they're going to need to find a way to get more because, fundamentally there are 70 games left in the season. They need 83 points. 83 points is roughly 40. It's 41 and a half wins, right? So if you're going to get 41 and a half wins out of the remaining 70 games, that means going like 42 and 28, which is a lot more than they've been. So, I mean, it's just sort of, is there hope at this point? And I've been sort of noodling around what to write about today, and that's kind of what it is. It's like, where are we actually? What is actually realistic? Can this team actually go on a run? Because they're going to have to start going on a run. Like, the longer they wait to really start banging some wins together, and certainly they have a chance to do that. I mean, when Minnesota's reeling a little bit, they're going to Nashville, who obviously, like, they actually have a chance here to put together a really good road trip, right? And they come back on a 3-0 road trip, like, all of a sudden we're start talking about what I was just saying, which is that, you need roughly, like I said, they're going to have to go like 42 and 28 the rest of the way to make the playoffs, to make the playoffs comfortably. I mean, maybe that it ends up being only 92 or 93 points. Every year we say that, though, and every year it ends up turning out that the fourth place team in the Pacific Division means 95 points. So,
well, look, people will accuse us of being negative. Let's focus on the positive here for a little bit.
Yeah.
Kiefer Sherwood, he leads the team in goals, more than double the next one. I know we got 3 last night, but they signed him, I think, for his physical presence, perhaps intangibles, to be getting goals from him. Is this just a blip, a hot start, or is this something you see as being sustainable?
Oh, I mean, he's having a fabulous, wonderful start to the season. Can it continue? No. Like, he has been a very good goal scorer.
I said people accuse us of being too negative. We were going to be positive. Dare to dream.
But that said, listen, here's what I'm saying that's positive. No, he's not going to carry on at the 75 goals pace or whatever it is. The Wayne Gretzky-like pace that I was describing in my game story on Thursday night. Player grade story. Sorry, not a game story. He has scored. He's been a scorer at every other level. Right? Like, he's been a great performer. He scored, I think, 40 goals once in the AHL. He's also 30 years old, right? Like, this is the end of his peak. His peak scoring. Should he have been in the NHL sooner? Should he have been handed a scoring role sooner? Probably, but that's how things unfortunately work out in hockey. They often miss sort of there's a risk aversion of trying out a guy like this, or he's just having a great run of luck. 19 goals last year. Like, he's performing in an essential moment, in a way that this team needed, and we talked about it off top of the year. Like, this team can't just have this team can't lean on their best players being their best players every night. They need contributions from other people, and Sherwood's taking that on. Like, Elias Pettersson was pretty good last night. He didn't score, so that's not great. But on the whole, he's been playing pretty well, but you also don't have Quinn Hughes. And so if you're not getting goals from Elias Pettersson and you don't have Quinn Hughes and you don't have Connor Garland and all of a sudden you don't have Brock Besser, like, the cast that's available to you starts getting pretty thin. And thank goodness for Sherwood, because imagine like I said, I think I said on Blue Sky, like, imagine the Canucks without Czechsno's Kiefer Sherwood. And
Yeah.
that's not a knock on Kiefer Sherwood, but that's the reality where they're at. Like, he is the guy performing, and thank goodness for that, but it's not going to carry on because he hasn't been that guy in the past. He will find more goals this year. Maybe he'll set a career high, and that will be to the Canucks' benefit. But the truth is he is, when everyone's healthy, third on the depth chart on right wing, and um, that's fine. That's great. It's great they're getting performance from him. That's wonderful. But he's not a guy that makes sense to build your future hopes around.
No, but you know, I, I take your point that Pettersson has
Listen,
had some
I'll
good
just
games, but he Sherwood scored more goals last night than Pettersson has all season,
yeah, fine, yeah, that's
and
fine, and that's fine.
comes down
And
to it.
listen, everyone loves a cult hero, right? Like, I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
it. Everyone loves a cult hero, and that's fine, and that's a great story, and that's a good one, and that is good for the Canucks. It is not. I will say this: I'm not. The negative spin on this would be to take the torts line, right? Like, that's great for Kiefer Sherwood, but not so good for the Canucks. No, this is great for Kiefer Sherwood, and it's good for the Canucks, right? Like, he's carried them through a moment where they needed someone to step up, and the part of the reason why they're even at 500, which if you had sat back and said these are all the injuries they've suffered, where do you think their record is? And you wouldn't say they're a 500 team. Obviously the
no,
other reason is they've gotten really good goaltending, right? Like 30, what was it, 39 shots against and 36 saves for Lankinen. And Lankinen gives them a stinker to start the game and then finds his way, and that's really important. That must not be forgotten. I mean, Thatcher Demko's been fabulous. Um, the rest of it is the story has been almost entirely Kiefer Sherwood. I mean, you've gotten some decent contributions from Pettersson, questionable stuff. I mean, like, I wrote about this. Like Quinn Hughes, when he's been healthy, has not been his vintage self, and perhaps
let's
that's
get to
part of
him
the
in a
reason why
second.
they're.
I want to ask you one more thing about Sherwood, and then we can move on to
Yeah,
Hughes.
sure.
You see this, you see fans talking about it. Extend him now. Like
Yeah,
you say, yeah, great for Kiefer Sherwood at 30. This is probably going to be his
yeah,
last big chance to cash in.
yeah.
Um, do you see the Canucks being, for a 30-year-old, do you see them as being willing to say, yeah, you know what, this guy's been important to us? Or do you see them to be more like, we need to invest in youth?
Well, it depends on the price, and I think this is the other thing. I mean, he might be a candidate for the kind of contract that's been kind of mooted, and we haven't really seen too many examples of the idea of, well, actually, the kind of guy you should lock in long term is a guy at a cheap salary. So can you convince him to sign a sort of like a 5-year deal for 1.5 per? Does he think he would make more in the aggregate over those, like the baseline here is Dakota Joshua. Dakota Joshua was signed for too much for too short, right? I love the player. I was a big fan of Dakota Joshua. I think the Canucks were wrong to let go of him. I think he would have helped this team a whole lot, but they decided they wanted to move on after signing him to a contract based on his first great year. Like, the thing with Sherwood is the usual thing. He's had a really good season last year. He's having a really good season now. That's great, but you want to be careful how much you're paying on a year-to-year salary. But he also might be a guy that, hey, we think he's going to perform till he's 35, so you sign him to a 5-year deal and you keep the year-to-year cost down, because in the end, he's going to sit back and say, well, how much money can I actually make over that time? Can you calculate that out and sort of anticipate that a little bit? But fundamentally, the age 30 thing is why you should be cautious, because guys, their production starts to fall off, and certainly a guy that plays the way he does, very physical game, very fast. You start worrying about whether his legs will break down or his shoulders will break down, and so investing in a guy to not get hurt playing the way he does going into his 30s is something to be cautious about, especially if you're going to
Well,
invest money in them.
so these are the fascinating conversations that we'll have all year. Fascinating to
Right.
me, at least. Um, so, all right, take that for what it is. A guy who's having a bit of a hot hand, we'll see where that goes in a couple months, who is physical, seems to me like a perfect playoff piece.
Yeah.
Is that the flip side? Do you, even if you are a fourth place team, do you
Well,
look at the asset management and go, yeah, you know what? We're hoping to get the playoffs, but we don't think we're anywhere near a cup right now. Let's maximize our assets.
yeah, like, there's certainly that argument, and it'll be interesting to see how things play out. I mean, if there were sort of
Yeah,
some
it's a bit
obvious,
premature, but
yeah, but I mean, no, but just in thinking it forward, I mean, if there were some obvious internal options, um, not saying you have sort of Kiefer Sherwood 2.0 waiting in the wings, but if you had some hard, aggressive forechecking players in Abbotsford, No, those guys are already there. Like, I mean, Linus Karlsson and Max Sasson probably are the closest to that, and they're already on the roster. So who else are we
Yeah,
talking about? They like, like Chase Wouters isn't coming up. Tristan Nielsen's gone. Tristan Nielsen once maybe could have been that guy, but he didn't. It didn't pan out, right? Like, the Danilo Klimovich isn't going to be that guy. There's just not a lot of options in the minors now. So, what are you angling for here? So if you do have playoff, you're right. I mean, this this has been done before. I think the San Jose Sharks did it one year where they traded a bunch of guys and they still had a playoff run, right? Like, you can do it, but it kind of dependent on what else you have and the options you have in your stable. And the Canucks just don't
yeah.
have a lot in their stable.
I'm
So
just
it's
looking
going
at
to be,
long-term asset management.
yeah,
That's
it's
all.
going to be well, but I was going to say it's going to be a difficult decision no matter where they're at next spring,
Absolutely. Yep.
right?
Yep.
Like, you're absolutely right. There's huge value in this player as a playoff performer, right? So going to the
Yep.
deadline and his contract, right? Like, going to the deadline, this is a guy that teams are going to be calling about no matter what. So you have to
Yep.
be ready and thinking about, what do we want? Where do we go? What do we get out of this? And what's our team going to look like both in the playoffs this year, because hopefully they're in the playoffs, and what is their team going to look like next year? So
Okay. Yes. Quinn Hughes. Let's move on to him. You wrote a piece yesterday. Excellent, I might say. Is no real cause for alarm or panic, but
right,
numbers are down defensively.
yeah.
What do you go through some of those numbers and why do you
Yeah,
think they are what they
it
are?
was pretty stark. Like, I just found myself looking at, we're 10 games into the season, so you can start drawing some conclusions from the data we've seen so far. And truthfully, right now the Canucks give up too many shots. They have overall actually done not a bad job controlling the middle of the ice, right? Like, they've defended the middle of the ice. They've been forcing teams into taking dumb shots, which, listen, that's all right. But notably, for some reason, and it's hard to conclude anything but Quinn Hughes is not 100%, hasn't been 100% all season, because his defensive record is up. While he's on the ice, the Canucks' defensive record is the worst it's ever been in his NHL career, and to the point where it's like 20-30% worse. Like, it does not actually make any sense, but for the fact that this is a player that, I mean, I was talking to someone else the other day, and they're like, well, maybe they're targeting him more, they're going after him. Like, the hits he's taking is actually less, which tells you he has the puck less, which matches with the truth that the Canucks are giving a lot more shots up. Now, the Canucks are getting as many shots up ice as normal as with him. So he's just not playing the same sort of swagger. I mean, the anecdotal observations all said is, I'd have people who work for other teams saying, is Hughes hurt? Like, what's going on here? And I'm like, I'm not actually sure. He doesn't look the part. He doesn't look as good as he's been. Is it a long-term permanent thing? I don't know. He's out right now. There's hope that he plays this weekend. I guess by the time people see this, maybe we'll already know. But he's dealing with a groin injury, it sounds like, and that would make sense because that makes it harder to move and harder to skate. And a guy like him is all about moving and skating. We've seen him lots of the classic pivots, lots of the turns, but obviously, I mean, I need to go back and look a little more carefully. But if I can imagine if you go back and look at some of his defensive shifts, you will see certain things he is not able to do. Puck battles he's not winning, pucks he's not getting to, because his legs have not been 100%, and that is a trouble for the Canucks. Like, this like last year's team, which was built on the performance of Elias Pettersson, JT Miller. This year's team is built on the performance of Quinn Hughes, and if Quinn Hughes isn't able to perform, I know it's shocking to hear, the Canucks may be in trouble.
Lucas Reichel, what are your thoughts on his start?
I mean, we're at 4 games now. It's players like this where if you watch them enough, you start understanding. Okay, I can see how pro scouts look at the game, and they would see a guy that moves his feet really well. He is a beautiful skater. There is a real grace to the way he moves around the ice, and I appreciate some of his puck skills. I think he's got some fun stick handling skills, but we have seen every game basically him having a glorious chance and him not being able to finish. There is a lack of precision, a lack of execution in his shooting that I guess explains everything. And it is that difference. So he is not the first player to run into this problem, where they've been able to score at every other level, and then they run into NHL defenses and NHL goaltending, and they simply have no solution. I mean, like I can, the list is long. I can go back over the years for looking at guys. I mean, most recently, perhaps a guy like Jack Studnicka. I think Lucas Reichel is better than Jack Studnicka, but Jack Studnicka was a guy that was a creative player at every other level and just couldn't find that space that he needed in the NHL, or that release, or that timing. So listen, he's been okay. He's still a work in progress, I think, is on faceoffs. But you put him on the ice, you can see why he's there. You can see why he's still in the NHL. Those wheels are going to keep him in the NHL. Is he a second line setter? I mean, there were doubts about that coming in. I have seen nothing to change the sort of opinion that no. The answer is no. He is not a second line setter. That he is a fourth line center. Is he any different in the end from Max Sasson? And I haven't seen anything yet really to tell me that he is truly not just a fourth line center.
Yeah, I know people see former first round pick and hope that a change of scenery and a new coach can like flick some switch, but kind of once you're, your mid-20s, you kind of are what you are, unless you're Kiefer Sherwood and you hit 30 and all of a sudden you go in a 75 goal pace.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like I said, maybe someone should have given a chance earlier. Like maybe that's the difference, right? Like it comes down to a lot of it. I mean, that's the story of the Sedins. I mean, I said this once. I remember when we were doing this retirement year, and I actually talked to Brian Burke at one point, and I said, "Is the lesson with them that you guys should have played them more when they were younger?" And he Brian Burke bristling at a question like, "I got mine. Everyone's had one of those," and he goes, "No, they weren't ready." And I'm going, I walked away. Nothing he said convinced me that I was wrong. He just felt that their decision.
No, they were ready to be run out of town at that point too, though. People would have gladly seen them disappear. Vilander. So again, we're talking about prospects, about the future, about potential. I know Coates isn't coming back, but encouraging signs from him since he's gone back to Seattle. As we talk about player development, what do you think of Vilander or we know Lecky or Mackey's hurt, but anyone else, any of those young players who you could expect to maybe show a little bit more as we get into the season?
Well, I mean, Vilander is another guy. Like, listen, he moves well. Like he carries the puck well, and like I mean, he got a lot of ice time against St. Louis. Had his moments, played all right, wasn't amazing, but like this is a player. I remember when he's been in the system a couple of years now, right? Like, but I remember when he was. I was talking to someone from the Canucks a couple of years ago, and I said mapping things out, and it's Jim Rutherford. I said no, like looking down the road, like I look at sort of your lineup. I think it was last year. I was looking at 24-25, so this was like 23-24, early 2023, and I was just sort of saying, when do we really see these guys in the NHL? And he said, well, it would be really good to have Lecker Mackey in 24 and, Vilander the year after that. So here we are. Vilander's in the NHL, perhaps a little quicker than they anticipated because of injuries in the moment. But, the long-term plan a couple of years ago was to have him at this point. So he is a bit of sink or swim mode because he's brand new to pro hockey. We certainly saw issues with sort of his reads and speed and his reads and in terms of both puck and without the puck, and how the speed of the game affects your timing and everything. And there were some struggles in preseason. Like there was just no doubt about that. But he's had a few pro games. He's had a little more time. He's in. Listen, they drafted him partly because he's a smart guy, so he's reading things pretty quickly. The question is how quickly he developed. I mean, here's a great example of a smart guy right here, Gino.
Yeah.
Gino was a guy. I mean, Paulin Bordelot said to me, Gino was this guy who I could show him a thing and he could do it right away. Now, I don't know if Tom Vilander is that player, but if he is, that's great because his development curve will be huge. Certainly, we know that even in the short term, him getting a few NHL games here will benefit or should benefit him, because he's now seen how fast the game is and what he needs to work on and what he needs to improve. So, yeah, like there are good things he's doing. That said, he's been a bit fortunate. There's been some bad puck decisions, and yet he has not been on ice for a goal against at 5-on-5, which he can probably thank his goaltenders for.
All right, we finish up as we always do. Last week, you had no faith. You said the Canucks would go 1-3. I said they'd go 2-2. That was off. They were struggling when we did
Yeah,
this video last
yeah,
week.
yeah.
More injuries to deal
Oh my
with,
God.
more uncertainty. 3 games in the next 7 days, obviously on the road. This schedule we've talked about.
Oh,
I don't have a lot of time um, for whining about travel.
yeah,
These guys don't travel like you or I would travel, but they really have had a game every other day and road trips and everything else. They don't get
yeah.
basically a day that you'd be free to have a practice until next week. They've got Thursday, Friday off. So they've got Saturday in Minnesota. Then they head to Nashville. Then they come home. Then they play
Yeah,
Chicago on Wednesday. And then I think finally you have a couple of days just to collect
yeah.
yourself. So how do you see
Plus,
that playing out for them?
it's a mad. I mean, listen, like you're right. Like it is the schedule, and they're not complaining about it. They just know it exists. But yeah, like they go, they came home for what 4 games and or three. I can't remember, 3 games in 4 days or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Then immediately go back on the road for 3 games in the Central Time Zone. Come home, play immediately. Like they get one day off, play. Then they have 2 days off. That's nice. And then they play Saturday, Sunday, and
Yeah,
then
which is so weird.
yeah,
Back-to-back home games weren't really a thing until, I don't know, about 6, 7 years ago. And now it seems like they're happening so
yeah.
frequently.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it's listen. I mean, I've been critical, and I think I'm right to be about some of the ticket sales decisions these teams made. But like that schedule, it's tough to sell 3 games in 4 nights. Like I get it,
Yeah.
especially when you're in a competitive marketplace and you haven't been winning, and the teams across the street are in the playoffs, and on and on and on. Anyway, so what we're talking about, Wild, Predators, and Blackhawks, is that what we're talking about? Yeah, because
Yeah.
the Blue Jackets is until Saturday. I think there's it's just inevitable because of the struggles with the lineup. They are gonna lose at least one of these 2 games. But I think they will beat the Blackhawks next week. I think they're gonna go 2-1 in the next 3 games. Look at me being optimistic. See, I told you
Yeah.
I can do it.
Okay. So I have to say 3-0. I do want to point out you wrote another great piece because I've had people try to argue, and they're mostly, I guess, golf fans, that April is the best time of year for sports.
Right.
And I mean, you can make an argument for the NHL playoffs, but when you have this time of year and so much going on, like this is really sports nirvana. Now, you wrote a piece about how Saturday you have this confluence of events.
Yeah.
Let's just assume the Blue Jays win on Friday and they aren't part of the equation, because if the Blue Jays go to a game 7
Right.
Saturday, I think that's capturing everyone's attention.
Right.
But you've got basically very close to the same time, Lions and Canucks playing. Lions at home to Calgary, and then you've got the Whitecaps who can move into the second round
Sure.
if they beat Dallas, or it will go to a third game the following week. What are your predictions on those 3 games? And what will you be watching? I guess you have to watch the Canucks.
Well, I gotta watch the Canucks. Yeah. Well, what about if there's game 7? There's 4 games. Oh my God.
No, that's what I said. If the Jays don't get it done
Oh, no,
on Friday
right.
night,
Oh,
then
sorry.
we've then
Okay,
we've
yeah,
we've
yeah,
got
no,
like
because I was
4, and
thinking,
they're pretty much all, the Whitecaps game's a little later at 6:30, but they're kind of all going at the same time.
yeah, back to back to back, and with the Blue Jays in the middle. Well, I think the Blue Jays are going to win. I think they're going to take whether it's in game 6 or game 7. Like I think they're going to win. There's just been enough there, and I think John Schneider's done a really good job managing. I mean, obviously the 18-inning game was a bit of a dart throw, but they went. He generally has gone for it, and I think he's done a pretty good job managing his bench, using his bullpen. It's like the way their pitchers have shut down this impressive Dodgers lineup has been impressive. So I think they're going to win one way or another, whether it's game 6 or game 7, and playing at home and the Rogers Center and all that. The Leos, I mean, I don't know if I've told this story. I know I've said it elsewhere, but like, I pay attention, but then of course hockey season comes, and so you kind of lose track. And the Whitecaps were, Thomas Muller come in and all this, and so the Leos have been so stumbling. I mean, I know you love talking about the length of the CFL season and everyone making playoffs almost and whatnot.
Yeah, it's pointless. You play 18 games and 2 teams get eliminated.
Yeah, so here's a great example of that. I had kind of stopped paying attention, and then once I kind of got back on the frame by the end of September, early October, like, oh, they've turned their season around, and they could and they're kind of roaring into the playoffs. Roar, you Lions, roar. I think it could be a Vancouver. I mean, like the Minnesota game is going to be tough just because these is a tired team missing guys. Even if Minnesota's not playing that well, I think there is a huge chance for a sweep of wins. Like I think the Whitecaps are going to beat Dallas. I think they're just they're so much deeper. There's so much more there. That ability to turn the knife with their bench. Dallas is good. Like we've seen them 2 weekends in a row already. And there's a sort of a real vibrant counter-strike mentality to them, but the quality still, and the way the Whitecaps have played all year and have used fitness to their advantage, their ability to press all over the field. They've just been such a fun team, and I mean, like we'll see how the lineup really shakes out. Is Brian White out or questionable? I forgot to look. But
I haven't seen an update on that this morning.
But the way they pulled it together, and the Muller acquisition, I mean, it's just been so incredible. Like the way he has taken this game to a new level, this team to a new level, has been impressive. In the same way that Nathan Rourke, a chilled out Nathan Rourke, has really taken his Lions by the scruff of the neck, and obviously he's up for most outstanding player, let alone Canadian. Yeah, it's the Lions. I think are going to win, and really, to me, the only question mark is going to be the Canucks, and I think people can understand why they'd be a question mark, given that half of the team is going to play in Abbotsford this year.
All right, I'm going to predict everyone wins this weekend.
There you go.
There you go. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks to everyone for listening, watching. Sign up for the Canuck Report, our daily newsletter, which will send all the Canucks content to you. Go to theprovince.com to sign up for that /newsletters. Patrick, thank you for that, my friend, and we will talk next week.
See you later.